Welcome back to the Neuroverse. I'm your host, Magnus Hedemark, and this is my boomy radio voice. You won't be hearing much of that. We'll just go back to like normal chill Magnus. Welcome back to the Neuroverse. I know it's been a long time and I'm really embarrassed. I'm actually really ashamed. You'll notice this is episode 10. You're wondering like, oh, where was episode 9? I didn't hear episode 9. Episode 9 was lost. If you listen to episode 8, you'll notice like partway through episode 8, the audio got corrupted. I recorded episode 9 like an hour after episode 8. So I didn't know that my deck was recording busted audio. And so 9 was complete throwaway. And I've been just hiding out of shame, embarrassment, and just feeling bad. I did bad and I feel bad. But we're back again. I got like 2 things recording now. So if my deck doesn't work, then I got a recording on Zoom and we'll use that. A little bit of housekeeping real quick. If you're new to the Neuroverse, we are a listener-supported show. There are no ads. If I have my way, there will never be ads on this show, I hope. But what that means is if you have the means and the interest to help support this show, you can go to our Patreon page. I'll have a link in the show notes, and even $1 a month helps. Most people donate about $5 a month, and that's awesome. That keeps the show going. That pays for the hosting, pays for other stuff. And excuse me, I shouldn't have eaten dinner like right before recording this. But like most recently, we got a really cool 10-legged octopus, Tentacles, and he's our logo. They are our logo. You hear our guest. Anyway, yeah, Patreon, blah, blah, blah. So we have a guest, and you probably recognized her voice if you listen to the show. She's been here before, and she'll probably be here again a lot if I have anything to do with it. Welcome back to the show, my friend, Haley Moss, Esquire.
You make me sound so important. It's always great to hang. It's always great to hang out with you.
You are so important.
No, awesome. I'm not. I mean, just trying to live my best life. So, if you can tell, I'm actually back in Miami.
You're back in Miami.
Because this is my apartment.
So yeah, you went somewhere else.
I lived at my parents' house for like almost 7 months.
Wow. My parents also live in Florida.
I went home for the pandemic, like most people did, and I was like, you know what? And at some point, like, not because they opened Florida and our governor did whatever he does. It's like, you know what? It's just I need some space, and I also just have stuff to do.
My parents live in Florida, and I guess my relationship with them is different.
Look, I love my family. We're super close. I'm the only kid though, but I think when you live at home for any extended period of time, you kind of find yourself regressing a little bit. And I feel like I was all of a sudden 26 going on 15. And I was also scared to ask for the car. And like, I know that you have to follow like different rules. And you're kind of like a different version of yourself when you're around family sometimes. But I think that's the case for most people.
Oh yeah. I know if I visit, I have a hard time. Like certainly 7 days is a long visit, and we do that sometimes. 7 hours can feel long sometimes. I like that. I would like it frequently in small doses. I think that would work well. You know, like
I think
regular coffee dates or something.
So not like 7 months.
Not like 7 months. No. You could almost
you're also
deliver a healthy baby in 7 months. That's a long time.
Thank you for making me think of that. I can't imagine when you put it that way and you make me think of it as a 3rd trimester pregnancy. Now I can't unsee that.
Well, like, where does the mind go when you start thinking about like what can a person accomplish in 7 months? Like
this girl accomplished a book manuscript. So thank you.
Yes. So when do we get to see that book?
I'm hoping spring 2021, but I am at the beck and call of the publishing gods.
Okay. Well, who do we have to sacrifice?
How about we just sacrifice blue puzzle pieces?
Blue puzzle pieces. Oh, I will burn so many blue
Uh, uh,
puzzle
s-
pieces.
I'm glad you're down for sacrificing
Just
blue
send them.
puzzle pieces at the altar of the publishing gods.
Yeah, just send us all your blue puzzle pieces, and I promise to burn them.
Are you gonna get it on film now?
Yeah, I got fancy
I think that would be
cameras.
the most viral autistic like video that we've ever seen. You should make it a TikTok, and then you can relate to the children.
If Patreon goes nuts, I'll like, I don't know if I can find some place that will like sell me bulk blue puzzle pieces and just
As
buy them
long
and
as
burn them. That would be a lousy use of money though, but I would totally do it.
it
If
sounds
the
like
blue puzzle pieces showed up.
it almost sounds like a Cards Against Humanity ploy,
Yeah.
like a publicity stunt for sure.
I don't know. Well, I would. I technically I have a YouTube channel. I haven't really used it yet. That would be a great way to start it. But then it sets the bar high. It's like you're one and done. You do your one great video, it goes viral, and then what do you do after that?
Look how many great singers are one hit wonders. You can live with it, and then you could just ride it for the rest of your life and have this great story. I mean, I went viral once upon a time, and I still talk about that story of remember the time that I had to take like 6 weeks off of work because every single news outlet wanted to talk to me. And then
That
once
was
upon a
crazy.
time, I had to take 6 weeks off of work. I couldn't handle it. And my parents were involved, and I lived at home then too because it was like, how else does one handle the media for a long period of
Yeah.
time? And also, it was a safety concern. Like, I have a one-bedroom apartment. Like, it just didn't seem like being alone in a 1-1 was exactly the smartest move at that particular moment.
Yeah.
So I did take 6 weeks off. I have a great story to tell for it. I mean, I'm still kind of I think about it a lot actually, because people always ask me like, "What's that like?" And every single time, like they're like, "What was your favorite media thing you did?" And every single time I go, "When I got to take control of my own story and I started writing again." Like when I started writing
Yeah.
for like HuffPost and Bustle and all that stuff. Like when I got to take control of my own narrative again and not have the narrative that other people were trying to tell with me as their character. That was my favorite part of the whole thing, was getting to take control and take back my story. Because I love, don't get me wrong, I love some of the stories that were done about me, and I really am quite proud of them. And I still show off the Today Show very regularly because I think it's really cool that like the filmmakers that came from Today really wanted to make sure they told my story my way. And I
Yeah.
basically told them flat out, like, I don't want to be an inspiration. And they ran with it. They were cool with it. But
I'm glad you
as
like that
you,
one because
but
when I
as you've
Google
seen a
you,
lot of
that's like the
stories,
first thing that shows up.
but as you've seen with a lot of stories, they make me out to be this very inspirational figure. And like, wow, that's a really quick summation of my
Yeah.
life. Is once upon a time I was nonverbal, and now I'm a lawyer. And that means if that's all you get from me, I screwed up. That means I
Right.
really screwed up if that's the entire story that you get from me.
Like every now and then I'll run into somebody who hasn't heard of you somehow. And so I like Google, like, okay, I'm sure you've heard of her. Maybe you're just not recognizing the name. And the first thing that shows up is the Today Show clip on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad that's not a terrible clip.
I like that clip.
Yeah. Um, oh gosh, there was something else that we were talking about too that I wanted to go down that path and I lost it.
It's
Not
okay.
parental
I feel like I lose my train of thought all the time. Also trains.
Ooh, trains.
I
Woo-hoo.
feel does the Neuroverse have any wholesome train content by any chance?
Not yet.
It needs wholesome train content. Can we get like a train expert?
Oh, where are we going to find a train expert in the autistic community?
I don't know.
Um,
Um,
I remember what I was going to talk about. YouTube.
YouTube.
Yeah, we started talking about that. Like, I don't know. What would I do on YouTube? I'm not. So I could do the same thing I'm doing now on podcasts. Just you have to look at my ugly face while I'm doing it.
Oh, your face is not
I don't
ugly.
know.
Don't be so hard on yourself.
Um,
The listeners don't realize that I'm actually staring at your face. So
and she hasn't blinked once the whole time. I kid. I kid. Or do I?
I have no clue.
You're blinking. I'm blinking
You're
more.
you're you're scaring me into thinking that I must be some kind of like robot or something.
Oh, no, 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 no. Those are people without autism.
Or the
They,
researchers who make the autism robots that to teach us social skills, like as John Marble used to joke, like, hey, look,
yeah,
there's a robot here that's not teaching us social skills.
right. Or the phone apps. That's another thing that comes up a lot. I've seen it on LinkedIn, like people asking, what kind of mobile applications do people with autism need to learn social skills? And
Um,
none.
I just remember non-compliance is a social skill.
Oh. So if do you reckon like if autistic people made robots, they would be the first empathetic robots?
I think that if we made robots, they would be empathetic. I mean, I always like to tell people when they like to get into the vaccine debate, I'm like, autism probably causes vaccines, not
Yes.
vaccines cause autism. Like, come on, let's be real. So half the scientists might be autistic anyway. Who knows? That
And
there might be
vaccine.
in that are developing vaccines. Like, as you know, there are a lot of autistic people in the sciences. I'm not
Right.
trying to stereotype. I'm really, really trying not to make that a stereotype because I don't like that stereotype. But there do happen to be a lot of us in the sciences, and perhaps an autistic person developed a vaccine and they saw something outside of the box. So yes, I believe that autism causes vaccines. That's
The way I like to look at it,
flip flip that
among,
script. Flip that script, my friend.
yeah, among the fields that we dominate, you can include science and law and journalism
We're just
and
gonna take over the
art.
world. The
We already
neurotypicals should
have.
be
We're
very
hiding among you,
the neurotypicals should be very, very afraid.
and we're reproducing, and yeah, we're
We
everywhere.
have we actually have like relationships and successful lives and
Yeah.
oh my god. I had to explain to someone today why I absolutely can't stand Love on the Spectrum.
Why can't you stand love on the spectrum?
Did you watch it?
I did. I watched it end to end.
How did you feel before I tell you my thoughts?
I feel like I really wanted to hang out with some of the people that were on the show.
Oh, me too. I have nothing against the subjects. I
Yeah,
loved all of them. I would
beautiful
have hung out with
humans,
all of them.
mostly beautiful humans. You know what? I'm gonna have to like Google the names because I'm terrible with the names. There was only one of the cast members that made me uncomfortable because he was kind of like
Was it the one that wanted to wife like everybody?
yeah, he was kind of a bit of an incel.
The one that was sort of misogynistic?
Sort of very, yeah.
I'm trying to be nice because I don't know if he actually is a misogynist or if that's just how the filming and editing made him look.
Yeah.
So, because I was a documentary subject before, I can tell you that they will take a bunch of footage and they will somehow piece together this version of you that may or may not actually be anything like you.
Yes.
So, before I say he's a misogynist, I just want to assume that I want to give him the benefit of the doubt and assume that he was maybe painted to look like more of a misogynist than he actually is.
And that's my issue with Love on the Spectrum, my friend, is that it
It's
felt
like bad reality
scripted.
TV.
It felt scripted and produced. It felt like they had a narrative they wanted to tell about autistic people, and they collected as much footage as they could to construct that narrative.
There's a lot that was very scripted, like even the dates. Like, who goes to an empty restaurant empty fancy restaurant on a first date with a camera crew? That's just not normal. I'm sorry.
Yeah. And then, of
That's not
course, they're
normal under
anxious as
any.
hell.
I mean, I did respect that the girl on that date with the guy that we think was the misogynist, that she was like, I'm overwhelmed. This is enough. And she just like walked out, and the camera crew was totally cool with it.
Right. But those, like, if you have a hard time romantically, any first date is going to be stressful. And
Can
then
confirm.
yeah, and then the first
You
thing
know that I usually don't talk romance on any of these things whatsoever, but yes, first dates are stressful.
first days are stressful. Then you got a camera crew there watching every screw up that you think you're going to make,
Mm-hmm.
even if you're not screwing up.
Can confirm.
And then you're in an environment that you're not comfortable in.
Mm-hmm. So, as a former doc subject, my filmmaker wanted nothing more than for me to have a romance storyline. She was quite sad at the time that I was very single, and I wasn't wanting to date at that time because I didn't want her to come on a first date with me. She's like, if you go on a date, I'm going to come with you. And I'm like, no, you're not. You're not coming on a date with me. She's like, can I be there after you go and like wait at home for you? And I was like, absolutely not. My private life is my private life. I didn't feel comfortable with that. But there was this narrative that she wanted me to have of having this romance storyline. And there was someone that I was like talking to at the time, and she wanted it to happen so badly. And it made me feel so awkward to have like that interference of some sort of trying to define my relationships. And like, even now, I feel like any relationship that I have is between me and that person, like through and through. That's simple as that. I mean, that's just how it is.
So do you think the producer would have wanted you to be in a relationship on the show if you were a man?
I don't know. I think part of it was that it's like, here's this successful like 20 something trying to figure it out, or it seems like they have it all together, and it would just be great if they had that. Because I mentioned more than once, like, I didn't really have a lot of friends. I mean, I do have a lot of friends. They're just, you know, mostly people in our community, and I don't get to hang out with them. So when you're with me in person, it really doesn't seem like I have that many friends. But, and also the few friends that I do have obviously have boundaries too, and do not want to be on film. So
it just seems like society wants to tell a story like every time.
They want to tell a different story about you. And I was dating someone maybe 3 months after we finished filming that documentary. And she gets on the phone with me because of course I had to like keep her updated on what's going on in my life when we were friends. And I remember saying something, and my ex-boyfriend got on the phone with her and was like, I don't want you here. I do not want you to film us. I want nothing to do with this. He's an extremely private person, and I absolutely respect that about him. I mean, we're still friends. Like, we get along. I mean, we broke up over a year ago at this point, but that was what happened. Is he was like, no, I don't feel comfortable with this. And of course, he also knew I didn't want it either, but he got on the phone with her, because when I said, I don't want this, it wasn't good enough. But when he said, I don't feel comfortable, I do not want to be filmed, you don't have my permission, that was that.
Yeah, I mean, like when you're in the public spotlight, like maybe you sign up for that, but does everybody around you?
That's how I feel. I mean, here's the thing, and I say this all the time, especially in the dating universe. I am a private person with a public life, and I'm also a public person with a private life. That you get two different people with me. And that's just how it is, because the public version of me versus the private version of me are not this exact same person. And I think that's a really interesting dichotomy and really difficult to navigate. So I would take a partner to events, and I know they would see a version of me that they're not as well acquainted with. And and even now, like, I still have that conversation, and I don't always know the right way to have it, is be like, hey, I would love to take you to this like formal event, because I go to a lot of galas, for instance, and usually I'm honoring someone, or I'm the honoree, or I'm just invited to attend as like a public figure. And going to those things alone kind of sucks, because why would you want to go to a fancy dinner and have cocktails and schmooze by yourself?
Which, you know, everybody's going to comment about you, like, no.
I used to take my dad, and then everyone just thought it was wholesome and endearing. And then I realized that they all want to talk to my dad because he's my dad. And then I'm like, well, I'm in my mid-20s, and I don't think my dad should have to be autism Google. So the last couple times I actually took someone that I was dating, and I feel like the weird thing, especially now, because I think about like my current dating life, and I'm almost like, well, I'm going to have to like possibly subject the person to seeing ableism in full force, you know, like in a public space when a stranger meets me, that they'll say something like, you're so inspiring. And as you know, in our community, you and I will talk about inspiration porn and how it is no good, very bad.
No bueno.
But when you are in a public space and a stranger just calls you an inspiration, and even though they know that your partner knows that it hurts you, and you just sit there and you don't know, and instead of calling this stranger out and teaching them disability studies 101, you sit there, you smile, and you say thank you, even though you know that it's wrong. But how you don't want to cause a scene at this like fancy dinner party or anything, you know, you just want to move on with your life, and you don't want to go, you're like, do I be a person today, or do I be an advocate today? And that's when I put on the person hat. And I know, at least like with my partner, I'm like, oh my God, he's going to see this one day, and it's going to make him sad, because he's going to see me not stand up. And I'm very vocal, and I do stand up for myself all the time. I mean, isn't that what self-advocacy is all about, and what advocacy is all about? That he will see something hurt me, and I won't do anything other than just swallow my pride. And it will hurt him to know that, one, that thing I found offensive, and two, that I didn't do anything. And like, he will be hurt seeing me hurt and knowing that remark was hurtful. And I'm like, that's the thing with being a public figure. Sometimes I'm like, you're subjecting people to different types of pain. And that's the kind of pain that I think about. And I find myself afraid to have those conversations with another person.
Why do you think it is that so many people without autism want to see us as inspirations?
Because the bar is set so low for people like us that they don't think we actually do anything. And then when we do something, it completely blows their brains and goes past anything they could have imagined. So of course, because they see autism as this huge tragedy of you're going to be nonverbal, you're going to be this, you're going to be in an institution or a glorified institution someday, that wonder what's going to happen when your parents die. You know, like they have this whole like narrative of what the big scary autism monster is.
Right.
And then here you are just like living your life, doing your thing, being a lawyer, an executive, God knows what, just having a job, having a partner, having kids, whatever the hell it is you're doing that's completely normal. And then they're like, wow, that's so inspiring. It's like, I just want the same stuff everybody else does. I just want to be happy. I want to be independent, or you know what, interdependent, and have my support needs actually met, because that would be lovely. And I think interdependence is a very underutilized and underspoken about value in our society, because everything is about that you must do it yourself. But independence does not mean doing it alone. But I'll get off my soapbox with that. But I want the same things everyone else does. I want to be
back
successful.
Up on your soapbox.
I want to be successful. I want to be happy. I want to love and be loved. I want the exact same stuff that any other human being wants.
Yes. I'm going to drag you back up onto your soapbox, because
that doesn't make me special.
You said interdependence is something we don't talk enough about. So why don't you talk a little bit more about that?
I think that as a community, we do a very good job taking care of each other. I think that we have to. And I think we're told, at least in autism and disability spaces, that independence is this big goal, right? Like it's this big goal that you must do everything by yourself, be able to do it. Right. You must be able to live independently. What does that even mean? Are you living independently if you have a roommate? You're still dependent on your roommate for stuff too. Like interdependence is a value. There are things that I will never be able to do by myself. There are also things Agreed. That I know my friends with physical disabilities will never be able to do by themselves, because they just need help of a support worker or service provider, or or something is just, you know, inaccessible. Yeah. And you need the ableds to actually help you out with something. Does that mean you're not independent? So interdependence is one of those values that I think is really beautiful. And as a community, not even just the disabled community, we all depend on each other for something. It's not like we all just hunt and gather and cook our own food and live our solitary lives. We interact with each other. We need socialization. We need community. We need skills and talents that other people have. So we are naturally an interdependent group of people. But with disability, it's just made out that we have to be independent. We must be independent. And it's like, what even is independence?
Wow. Yeah. I am living an interdependent life right now. So I get that. I feel that. I know
I think there's a big difference though between like interdependent, which is totally normal and expected in our society, than being like codependent. Like I feel like there has to be some kind of distinction of when it's like unhealthy relationship boundaries too.
No, like the dynamic in my house, like I'm able to earn the income. So I go out and earn the income, and like I have a hard time with things like if it fell on me to go get my hair cut regularly, it wouldn't happen. I would have a woolly head and I would just be a mess. And like my oldest daughter kind of looks out for me and says, you know, Dad, you need a haircut. Come out on the back deck, sit down. And she cuts my hair. And it's the kind of thing, it's beautiful, you know. Someday she's going to be making more than me. She's a smart kid. But I wonder.
I keep forgetting that you have like teenagers and stuff.
Well, like you said, there's a public persona and the private life. I'm transparent.
I know you have kids. I just regularly forget about it.
Yeah, I do have a long-term partner. I do have children.
I do know that.
But I'm evasive about talking in too much detail about my family, because like that's their life
decision.
Right.
Like I don't talk about even when I post pictures of my parents, even though like my social media following loves when I post pictures of my parents, I still ask them like, is it okay if I post this picture? Or at least like, because usually I save posting about my parents for when, one, I can handle people telling me how much they love my parents, and two, when it's like an occasion, like a Mother's Day, Father's Day, birthday, or just some good excuse to give them a shout out for some regard, but usually I just always ask their permission because I don't want to like, violate their boundaries or privacy. And when I'm in a relationship, I also make sure whoever my partner is, I have a discussion like, hey, I don't post about you because one, I don't want to open that floodgate on my own, but even like on my private Facebook, like I would be like, hey, is it okay if I share a photo from this event that we were at together? Because it's not my place to decide what they do and don't want to share with people beyond me or their immediate circle, like there's a reason that if you go through any of my social media, private or public, that you see very few photos of me with anybody I dated. And that is often because we've had those conversations.
And a lot of times too, if you've had any time in the public spotlight, people will feel entitled to that part of you. Like if they know it's there, they're going to want it.
Even if they know it's not there, they feel entitled. You should see how many emails I get asking me on a date or saying I'd like to go out with you, or even when I do that, ask me anything on Instagram. Every single time, there's at least 3 people who write, "Are you single?" And every single time someone goes to "Are you single?" I say, I don't talk about my relationships or my romantic life, and that is a boundary that I have set very firmly on this page, and you are not entitled to that information. But of course, like anyone who knows me personally knows that I will talk about all of that stuff and give you the whole like cinematic universe of my like history because it's interesting, or I find it interesting.
Cinematic universe.
The Haley
I want to see
Cinematic
all
Universe.
those movies.
The Haley Cinematic Universe is actually very interesting. Thank you.
I've seen a little bit of it, and I would agree. would go back for more.
I mean, when we talk when we're not recording, I'll definitely catch you up to speed on the cinematic universe.
Yeah. Well, I heard a sneeze from one of your co-stars earlier, so I know that they're there.
You did? Oh my God.
I did. It was funny, like you were talking and I was listening and I heard a sneeze and I'm like, it wasn't you, it wasn't me.
Oh my God. Can you just edit that out, please?
No, that's actually one thing I'm not good at. So interdependence.
Not the sneeze, I mean the discussion about the sneeze.
Yeah. Woo, train of thought derailed.
See, this is why we do Neurofeld. Yeah, interdependence. That was a thing.
So we were talking about what that looks like in real life, but we
were talking about your partner and your kids and how they cut and how your daughter cuts your hair.
Yeah, when you have people that are in your life, in your physical life, mm-hmm. what interdependence looks like can be pretty easy to nail down. Mm-hmm. But for our community, where like most of our bonds with each other are virtual or like this Zoom call between you and I at best, mm-hmm. what might interdependence look like in a better version of our community?
I want to know the answer to that, but I think it would actually just mean everything is accessible and everybody's inclusive, and we will be in this like rainbows and butterflies and sunshine type world. But I am forever the idealist. Yeah,
you were like, I wouldn't say, I don't know, my optimist, but
I don't think I'm an optimist. I just think I think I'm an idealist.
You do give me more positive ambitions for our community.
I'm not afraid to criticize our community, but I'm also like I'll slap our community and also be like, here's my hand, let's do better. Do you want to do this together? Like so I was on a meeting earlier today about one of those like intentional communities for like affordable housing for people with IDD. And I felt and of course, like it's a very touchy subject in our community. Like basically it's a glorified institution depending on who you ask.
Yeah.
But but I also understand why this is wanted. Like I get that parents of folks with IDD have genuine fears about their future when they're no longer around. And I get that some folks with IDD would love to live with their friends who also have IDD and have access to support. Like I get the argument for it. But I also think there's criticisms to be had too of why are there no people with IDD, for instance, on the board of this organization, or why aren't they giving their input of what a supportive community even looks like? And of course I sit there ever the idealist and go, I think that non-disabled people should be able to live there too, and everybody can get whatever support they need to live affordably and comfortably, because I think the importance of affordable housing, nobody's going to fight that, especially for folks with disabilities who already have low income or high unemployment and all those other great disparities out there. Like, I have no argument against affordable housing. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say. I just think that it would be great if that community is something that exists, that it should be ran by and also at least guided by people with disabilities, because like, you know, we're the ones living there, not our parents, even though our parents might want that. Like, instead of say like a group home, for instance, or some other institution that you could leave or something like that. But again, I think it's kind of just messy stuff. I'm like, can you just at least include us on the board? And I'm like, but at the same time saying there, please don't pick me to be the person on the board, because I'm not going to live there. I don't have an intellectual disability. I think that you need to, I feel like the disability hierarchy is very, very real. And I always worry that nobody actually wants to talk about people with intellectual disabilities, especially. So in my work, what I've been a little bit more, I know that everyone is very intentional now, especially about race, for instance. I try to be intentional about race, but in disability work, since everyone seems to be covering that base really well, I really try to be intentional about folks with intellectual disabilities, because so much of the conversation is about them and it really doesn't include them. And people just think of them as complete children who do not understand anything, especially when they are adults. And I feel like people with intellectual disabilities just regularly get screwed by policy and the system overall. So I try to make sure that they are getting covered.
Do they get screwed by their own advocates, their own family members?
I think so.
I definitely see it in the autistic, I shouldn't say the autistic community, in the autism community. Which is
I was
a
going to
different
say,
thing.
So Florida, I tweeted about this recently, like Florida has passed a driver's license bill that lets people with developmental disabilities choose, keyword here, that you can choose or have the option to have a developmental disability marker put on your driver's license. And every supporter of said bill, of course, is a parent.
Right.
And anyone with a disability could tell you why this is not so much a great idea. And I understand the intentions, you know, like all these policies come with good intentions. And it comes from this idea of it'll make things easier for law enforcement or first responders to know that you're dealing with someone who is disabled and help interact and guide that conversation accordingly, especially if they had training or something of that nature. But these parents aren't thinking about the unintended consequences of like discrimination. Say I am a person with a developmental disability. If I'm out to dinner with my boyfriend or something and I want to like order a glass of wine, do I really want the waiter to know I'm disabled?
Right.
That they're going to look at it, they're going to know I'm over 21, but they're going to say I'm disabled and think maybe I'm not capable of ordering a drink.
Or
they're going to think,
date?
or they're going to think my dinner date is my guardian and I'm just his ward or something.
Right.
That I'm basically like the Handmaid's Tale, like I'm of dude.
Or like anything, like imagine anything else where you have to present a driver's license. I'm not going to say anything like pro or against gun ownership, but that's one example. Like if you want to go buy a gun, you got to present
or voting.
Driver's license.
Like think about voting, guys. Think about voting, everyone, because like you might have to present an ID or show an ID, and then of course, you know, people with disabilities and voting accessibility is a big thing. That is not my big soapbox, but it's definitely a thing, and I always like to remind people you should vote. You should register to vote. Civic engagement is pretty great, and yeah, but that's my quick spiel on voting. You got your ballot, Magnus.
Other people
my parents got there.
My mail came in today, and I applied a long time ago for my mail-in ballot, and it just showed up today.
I applied for mine, but it hasn't showed up yet. My parents, theirs showed up, and I helped guide them through the process because they're like, "What do we do?" And I'm like, "I filled out mail ballots before. Here's how you do." So my parents voted by mail for the first time, and I was very proud of them. And I'm like, you could track your ballot online. I was telling them like all the fun stuff you get to do.
Oh, wow. I think I haven't done it before. I think this is going to be like my plan B. I think my plan A is to go to the polls during the early voting days.
I usually do go during early voting, but I think this year that's not happening.
Early voting is happening here in North Carolina, and there are a number of, not yet, but I do.
Tomorrow's the debate.
I don't even need to hear the debate. I mean, like
neither do I. Look, I usually don't like to talk about my politics, but I think my politics are no secret. So.
Okay, you know what? I'm not going to pull punches. And
it's not that I don't want to be political and I don't want to alienate people. I just don't think that this is a political show, I guess. But yeah, you know that. And this
transcends politics.
agreed.
I think this transcends politics. I think if this were like any normal member of the GOP versus any normal member of the Democratic Party, I would not use this
I would still
show.
vote this. I would still vote the same way.
Well, I probably would not use the show to weigh in on that. And
True.
if
That we
you're
have.
listening to the show and you're a Trump supporter, you're probably in the wrong place. That guy is not. He's not.
It's
If you
wild
look
because
at anything from the Republican Party from the last century, I don't care what side.
if you're even a single issue voter here because you're here because you care about neurodiversity, you would know that the Republican Party is not exactly a friend of the disabled community right now.
I'm not going to throw the party under the bus generally. Their support of their president is very problematic for me.
Agreed, but I'm just saying that the disability community, it's very interesting, like how much has changed since that we had when we had a Republican president sign the ADA, for instance.
Yeah.
But I do think it's great that everybody seems to agree that sub-minimum wage has got to go.
Oh yeah. Absolutely.
That's a good thing. But I also think it's wild when you see the debate about healthcare and you see all these things. And I mean, I'm not a single issue voter, but I think if you are a single issue disability voter, you can definitely see the contrast. So I've actually analyzed at some point all of the different Democratic candidates' disability policy plans. And the Republican Party and the Trump campaign never put anything out. So if that's your thing, and I know that, and I do have plenty of Trump supporters that I know that, for instance, do support the idea of neurodiversity, which I think is pretty an interesting thing because I think neurodiversity is fairly progressive to some extent. But it's very interesting to see. And then I'm like, well, if you look at disability policy and like what will affect your disabled kids someday, you will realize that only one candidate right now, at least, is considering their future.
Right. Only one candidate really has
A plan.
Disability policy. But look.
And it's not a perfect policy either because I've looked at it. It's not a perfect policy. I don't think anyone has a perfect policy. And I think during the primaries, I've seen better disability policies, but I still like the fact that there is a presidential candidate that is at least trying to pander to my community and me. Yeah. And also, as a quick aside about Joe Biden.
His taxes.
Another quick aside about Joe Biden, he happens to be a trains person.
That's right. He was famous.
His love of the
Amtrak.
His love of it. I know.
Every day from DC to Delaware.
He may or may not be pandering to the autistic vote, and I'm not going to complain about it.
And he actually, I heard that he actually reads the Amtrak magazine while he's riding. Like, nobody who rides Amtrak reads that thing. Joe Biden reads it.
That's so wholesome.
Yeah. Look, I'm not necessarily
wait.
I'm just saying,
Magnus,
if you vote Trump, you're dead to me.
You know what? We just got our wholesome train content on the show.
We did. We kind of did.
About reading the Amtrak magazine.
Yes. Maybe we can, if any of Joe Biden's people are listening to this, I will endorse you if you get your man on the show and just talk to us about trains.
We would like to I think we should do a full interview with him or someone from a campaign spokesperson just to talk about the merits of trains and preferably like a biographer or something. I'm sure there's going to eventually one day be a biography of the guy. And if there are, I hope that biography extensively covers trains.
And there will be no hardball questions. It's just, nerd out with us about trains, the American rail system.
Always about trains.
And then some more trains.
Mm-hmm. Always about trains.
So yeah, if I go to the early polling station and it's kind of a mess, if there's a bunch of like rednecks with guns there, which I'm not ruling out at this stage of 2020, then I'm just going to do my mail-in ballot. If I can safely vote in person, I will.
Yes, it's also super important for folks like you that are also you and me are both in purple states. Yeah. And it's also super important for you because you have a Senate race on the line.
Yes, I do.
So thanks to Autistic Twitter, I somehow got into election Twitter, or at least I follow it, because I told you need to follow Drew.
He didn't follow me back.
Drew is great, though. I'll tell him to follow you.
Yeah, I think you already did once and he didn't.
He's really big in election Twitter, and I know Election Babe as well is also, I think she's also autistic and has an autistic kid.
Election Babe?
Yeah, she wrote for Eric not too long ago with the post. but she also is really into elections and poll working. And like, there's a lot of people in election Twitter that are definitely autistic. And let's be real, they sit there and they analyze data and make maps, and it's kind of cool. And it's like a weird form of horse racing, I guess. But I feel like I've learned a lot about elections and who's running and poll data. And like, I get to nerd out about numbers and stuff because of autistic Twitter intersecting with election Twitter. So I weirdly know more than I thought I would ever know about elections, thanks to some people in our community having a special interest in elections.
I am now following Election Babe, and some of my mutuals also follow her. Drew is at the top of the list, as you mentioned. Reese Piper's in there.
I love Reese.
I would love to have Reese on the show at some point, and I think we kind of talked about it, but didn't pursue it.
I love Reese.
Yeah, there's Sarah Luderman. There's HLM Esquire.
I was feeling creative.
She seems important.
I was feeling creative.
And then EMG, Eric Michael Garcia.
EMG.
He's below you.
He actually he texted me today, actually.
Yeah.
We were talking about sub-minimum wage, and because one of his favorite senators is Senator Hassan from, I think it was New Hampshire. And she's a parent of a disabled adult, I believe. And she's just really good about disability rights stuff. And I remember when he covered like Senator Duckworth and the campaign having 2 disabled people running for that Senate seat. And it was just, yeah, he's good people.
So looking at this list of people who follow Election Babe, we were talking earlier about how autistics dominate the world, and this is kind
autistic Twitter is definitely connected to.
Well, we're all over the place. So
you just froze, by the way.
No, I'm still here. Can you see me? Can you hear me? Well, I can see and hear me. Ellie, oh no, you froze. You there? Can you hear me? I'm going to stop my video. I can hear you. You can't hear me. Technology. No. You there? You're muted.
I'm here.
All right. You know what? That's going to stay in the show.
Okay.
All right. So I'm going to turn my camera back on. That was weird.
That was weird.
So
you were talking about Election Babe. I feel like this is becoming the gossip channel.
All right. Election Babe is just a convenient way to illustrate a point we were making earlier about how autistic people are in every industry. We're like everywhere.
Yes, so, including elections.
The small number of autistic people that I know and follow that also follow Election Babe on Twitter include an editor from the Washington Post,
who happens to be really big in politics and history.
Yes. An attorney that I'm speaking to on a Zoom call right now. Let me see. Ryan Hendry. I'm not sure. What does Ryan Hendry do?
I don't remember what Ryan does.
I don't know. Sarah Luderman, disabled disability writer. She writes for Vox.com, The Nation, Washington Post, and more. Helen Roddier.
And she writes plain language stuff. Helen Roddier is a grad student in disability studies getting her PhD. She also sends really cool mail because she has a very, very special interest in the mail and the postal service.
Awesome.
She sends great postcards, and I 100% owe her one. She sent me one that the other day or week that said sending you spoons, and it was just very needed.
I don't know if it's Raya or Ria person. So she's really big in the autistic while black community. Or I should say they. Well, they go by she or they, apparently, on pronouns. Reese Piper. Raya. Okay. Yeah. Sorry, Raya. Figuring it out as I go. Reese Piper, autistic sex worker and writer. Okay. And Drew, who's an author. You talked about Drew before. Drew's an author that's like huge in
election land.
Yeah. So like take that autistic hyper focus and special interest on
twist it around.
And like, this is the brainiac of elections and everything that's happening in the American political space.
Mm-hmm.
So all those people, like from all different walks of life, all just happen to be following Election Babe.
We stand.
Yeah.
We can't help but to stand our community.
And then I didn't mention myself. I am Election Babe's newest follower, and I'm in software engineering. I'm in IT. I'm an IT manager, which means I don't even do IT. I just manage people who do IT.
You're just kind of a big deal.
Not really.
Yes, you are.
I am a wee person in a big machine.
Mm-hmm. Well, you're a very special cog in the machinery then.
Oh no. I misread the memo. I'm hard of hearing. They said cog, and I thought they were looking for a cod. I'm a cod in the machine.
That means you're really special then. If you're just a fish in the middle of the machine.
Yes, I'm the fish in the machine being ground up by the gears. And like, I don't want to clean that mess up.
Or you're just going to be the Groktopus with all the tentacles, and then it's just going to absolutely disrupt the machine.
Yes. All right, I'll take that. So where were we? Where are we going? Where have we been? Where do we need to go next?
On Neurofeld.
What's that?
Because you're like, where are we going next? I'm like, next on Neurofeld.
Next on Neurofeld. We have been at this for 46 minutes and Zoom hasn't kicked us off yet.
It doesn't kick you off if it's just one-on-one.
It does a little later. But
no, it does. It's unlimited for one-on-ones, and it kicks you off if you're more than two people.
I had a one-on-one last week that went too long. It was at least a couple hours, and they still kicked me off.
Yeah, you're good.
So here's what I'm gonna do. Here's what I'm gonna done did.
What are we doing?
I'm gonna play the outro music. And I'm gonna say, Haley Moss, it's been awesome talking to you. Haley Moss Esquire.
It has been a pleasure as always, my friend.
So how do people follow you?
You can follow me on all major social media at Haley Moss Art, or you can visit me on the web at haleymoss.net.
So you all are done talking to Haley. I'm probably going to like stop recording and get a little deeper into the Haley cinematic universe. Who knows? We'll see. But
just an autistic girl in a neurotypical world.
Like this show is Neuroverse, but when it's Haley and I, it's Neurofeld, like Seinfeld, a show about nothing.
Nothing.
We literally got on this call and had no idea what we were going to talk about. I just pressed record and off we went. And that's how it goes with us. And that's why I love hanging out with Haley. So
I love hanging out with you too.
So we're going to do this again. It's been too long. We should do this more regularly because
absolutely.
We can. And yeah, we're going to do that. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.